Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and the best teeth in the flippin' game! Here for another edition of Let's Argue, where I welcome your hot takes, your unpopular opinions, and your toughest of questions. And I respond to the best ones. Let's go. Tekashi 6ix9ine should not be allowed to say the N-word. It's kind of interesting that this conversation is coming up now because for a long time in hip-hop, it was just kind of understood and accepted that members of the hip-hop community who weren't African Americans but were Latino Americans were basically to say the N-word. And listen, I was pretty young when a lot of this was going on. I enjoyed the music, I heard the music, but I didn't necessarily understand the cultural politics 100% of the N-word and the usage of the N-word and who could and could not use the N-word. And by the time I became old enough to understand it, even though it did seem strange to me that basically these lines were blurred as to who could and couldn't use it in a song and be accepted by the hip-hop community, the rules just kind of seemed to already be set, and I don't know, it's whatever. But now it seems like we're simultaneously on the cusp of two things, either a heightened awareness and sensitivity to the usage of the word and this, I guess, will to prevent certain people who don't really seem to be serving the culture like Tekashi from using it. But simultaneously, it seems like there's a competing idea that less and less people really kind of give a shit about the usage of the word because, for the most part, their primary exposure to it is just merely through entertainment and through songs that they like and think are catchy. So it's almost as if the word has had the opposite effect of spreading any kind of awareness or any kind of reflection or anything like that. And now people just kind of just see it as a word to use when they sing along to songs, or a word to use to sound cool or slick or in when making a rap song. So yeah, in some respects it really is like sensitivity around the word has been deadened because of people being overexposed to it in a way. It's kind of lost its power, or it's lost its cultural weight for some people because people don't associate it primarily with racism as much as they do with like just songs that they like. And I'm not exactly sure if that's going to change anytime soon, but what I do know is that it is really weird seeing Tekashi perform live and saying the word in front of just like a sea of white Europeans and they're just all repeating it back to him. It is kind of weird. It's something that for sure the forefathers of hip hop did not see coming. And listen, I don't have a definitive answer on what people should and should not do on this moral question. I have my personal preference and my personal actions. You guys know that I don't use the word in the context of my reviews because I feel like it's rude and it hurts people and there's a dark history associated with the word on top of it. I don't wish to stir drama over this conversation in my reviews. I would much rather talk about music. Muse and Radiohead shouldn't be compared to each other as they don't sound similar. Muse makes more dramatic opera-like songs while Radiohead makes more subtle, quiet, moody songs. You wouldn't see Muse making Daydreaming, and you wouldn't see Radiohead making Nights of Sidonia, would you? Okay, I mean, yes, granted, that is all true, but the reason people compare Muse to Radiohead is that Muse is obviously influenced by Radiohead. Now, I would actually credit Muse and give them all the props in the world for having such an obvious influence in their music from such a major band, and they've kind of turned it into a totally different thing. You know, I would never really confuse a Muse song for a Radiohead song, as you just kind of stated here in this tweet. But you know what, people don't really care for a lot of the Muse-ick the music that Muse comes out with, so I think a lot of fans out there and music listeners and haters are desperate to deride them in any way that they can, and I think just kind of another way is to delegitimize Muse's efforts is to just say, oh, you know, they sound like Radiohead, they're just really the rip-off Radiohead, it's just like Radiohead. So I agree these comparisons are not always good, they're not always tasteful, they're usually hurtful, but there is kind of a reason for it. Fact that Yellow Flannel is associated with very positive review is actually really good. When you review an artist that is very unknown, most people won't watch the review, but now that they see Yellow Flannel, they know you loved it and will probably click on the video and listen to album. Yes, this is the point. This is the thing. Even though I didn't read a whole lot of Pitchfork, one thing I've always admired about the site is the whole best new music visual and setup. I don't always agree with what they mark as best new music and why, but it's an effective tool to tell the audience, hey, like, sure, we may score some albums high, we may score some albums low, but this is our signal to you that this is like really special. This is stand out. And for a while, I never really had that visual element that told the listener before they even clicked on the video, alert, 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 I think this is really good. Then one day, I don't know, somebody just kind of left this comment just saying, hey man, you wear that yellow flannel whenever you review something you like. And honestly, up until that point, I wasn't consciously doing that, and I could have named dozens of other reviews where I was wearing the yellow flannel on a record that I absolutely hated. So obviously that person's comment was not true. However, I thought, well, what if it was true? So that's kind of how the yellow flannel came to be the visual aid that it is. So, you know, I like it. I enjoy the system. It's an effective system. You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch is the greatest diss track of all time. I mean, if we're putting like some musical songs in here and so on and so forth, and songs from movies and TV shows, why not almost every track off of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? As soon as like these kids are dying and getting thrown down tubes and turning into blueberries, Willy Wonka and the Oompa Loompas are right there with a hot ass diss. What's the album of the year for 2004? Basically, I'm asking you the toughest questions: The College Dropout or Mad Villainy? Both incredible works of wiggly air. Well, my friend, let me tell you, both of these records over here, for your information, are totally basic, boring, uninteresting, entry-level hip-hop releases that any moron and their mom knows about. But have you ever heard of Chingy's Powerballin'? That's the Patricians hip-hop album of the year 2004. Thank you very much. Only second to the Little Romeo album that dropped that year. Music that samples recordings of livestock and other animals is not vegan. That's a tough question. I mean, I guess veganism is kind of oriented around avoiding the exploitation of animals, and maybe that would qualify if you have to sort of place those animals into subjugation in order to attain those audio recordings. I mean, I think one could argue that, hey, you know, maybe we could sample some livestock at an animal sanctuary or something like that. So maybe it's not as bad as, I don't know. At least you could say that, hey, this song that has like a goat sampled in it, a goat didn't need to die in order to get the sample from the goat. So, So if no animals need to die or be harmed or no milk needs to be stolen, as long as none of that's happening, I'm not sure if it's the worst thing in the world. On top of it, what is the reason that the animal is being sampled in the song? Like if, I don't know, you're some kind of animal rights band or something and you're sampling some pigs, like, you know, squealing or crying while being held in a pen or something, then, you know, maybe you would sample that sort of thing in order to kind of get your message across. So I think whatever harm or stress the animals may or may not be getting put through in order to attain the recording that you're trying to get matters. It's important. The message that you're trying to put forward by getting that sample, I think, is also important. For a while on the internet, I remember there was a rumor of a Costa Rican photographer who created an art exhibit of basically them snapping photos of a starving dog, and it was a dog that they had like tied up, so they were in control of its movements and everything. They were basically the reason it was starving. And most obviously, that art exhibit would not be vegan. That would be an exploitative, a deadly, and a disgusting, and a nasty art exhibit to just starve a dog to death or near to death in order to get some photos for an art exhibit. But would an art exhibit of, I don't know, a happy, healthy dog that you're feeding well and treating right and loving and just not abusing at all, would that also not be vegan? Because I guess you're also kind of like getting something from an animal or something. Look, I mean, I've been vegan for about a decade now, And this just kind of goes to show you, like, I don't have the answers to all this stuff. You know, I think there's still a lot of like questions and philosophical quandaries within the vegan philosophy that still need to be explored. And you know, just to avoid animal exploitation and to just eat plant-based and avoid products that exploit animals and are tested on animals, you don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to be this hardcore, like, you know, vegan Bible thumper who knows everything about everything when it comes to animals and veganism, in order to just make some basic, functional, common sense life choices that minimize harm and damage and abuse and so on and so forth. You're afraid to play the upright bass for the intro. I don't own an upright bass. If you'll buy me one though, I will play it. Apps like TikTok and Musical.ly do a good job of exposing younger people to hip-hop, and is often their first exposure to the genre. Rappers like Lil Uzi Vert and Mo Money got their starts in SoundCloud. Do you think any rappers or artists will come from TikTok or Musical.ly? I'm not sure if they can come from there. I mean, isn't it just borrowed music from other stuff? I mean, personally, I haven't used TikTok or anything, but I'm pretty sure they're just like lip syncing and dancing and creating, you know, funny little videos to other people's songs. Like, is anyone creating original music off of TikTok? Is that happening? I mean, if these platforms come up with a way for artists to upload their own original content and promote their own songs and their own music videos and so on and so forth, yeah, absolutely, they could become a place for music discovery. But as of right now, I mean, yeah, you could argue that a lot of people are finding out about hip-hop, most likely just popular pop rap songs, through TikTok. And while that's mostly harmless fun, it's okay. Like, is that the best way to be introduced to a new culture, a new genre of music? I would argue maybe not. But hey, you know, not all of us get the best introductions to music across the board. I mean, I used to watch MTV all the time, which, I mean, yeah, people say it used to be good back in the day, and to a degree it was. It's certainly better than it is now, but I mean, it's certainly not the type of musical education that one would flash around, you know, oh, I watched MTV all the time back in the 90s. Okay, and I think that is going to be it for this episode of Let's Argue. Thank all of you very, very, very much for watching. Me, the bestest teeth in the game. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out, another Let's Argue that you can check out. Hit that up, or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, argue, 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 forever.